And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. What if I told you that you can get a condenser microphone and audio interface all in this tiny little package? And you know what? It even comes with hardware limiters so you can scream like Linus and it just won't peak! Today we're going to be reviewing this Elgato Wave 3 microphone to see how it stacks up against a proper condenser microphone and audio interface setup. Let's get cracking! Nowadays, every Ching Chong and Ling Long also want to be a streamer, and if you're one of those people, you probably bought a mirrorless camera or webcam and everything looks beautiful, except for your face. That one your mother gave, I cannot help you. And your viewers are still complaining that your audio sounds like robot chicken. So you went online and researched on microphones and audio interfaces, and you found out that they are either horrible and cheap or good but very expensive and complicated to set up. Back in the day, audio recording was reserved for audio engineers and musicians to use in studio settings. And with the introduction of YouTube and bedroom musicians, they started making audio interfaces that are much smaller like this so you can use in your room. But those are still relatively expensive to get into. Take for instance an entry-level condenser microphone plus audio interface could set you back as much as 1,000 to 1,500 ringgit or $300 to $400. With the current coronavirus crisis and the surge of the population of streamers, we start to get a demand for a more streamlined audio recording experience. All in one, plug and play, all that good stuff. Which is why Elgato is introducing this Wave 3 microphone to hopefully fill that niche. So we're gonna check out this microphone when it comes to its aesthetics, its tech, its specs, and do an audio test to let you hear the difference between this and see how it stacks up against a proper condenser microphone and audio interface. Stay lah, give face, get it? The Elgato Wave 3 is priced at whatever it is, wherever you are from. So please check out the links below to find out more. Mobhouse is going international! It looks really sleek in a matte black metal and plastic construction. The body is made of plastic with steel grills at the front and back, with tiny circular perforations and an Elgato logo at the front. The stand that allows the microphone to swivel around almost 360 degrees is made of aluminum and has a weighted circular base with a thick rubber padding at the bottom. The U-mount is detachable from the base, so you can mount it on any microphone stand or arm with a 1/4 inch thread screw, such as the Elgato Master Mount and Solid Arm combination. So I have the Master Mount but not the Solid Arm. Why? Because I have a master's degree in architecture, but I'm very fluffy and completely not solid except for certain parts. And by parts I mean my personality. Get your head out of the gutter. In terms of dimensions, this microphone is 153mm tall, 66mm wide, and 40mm deep, and it weighs only 585 grams. Let's take a closer look at the specifications of this bad boy. Now, the Elgato Wave 3 comes with a 7mm electret capsule. It's not a true condenser capsule, but in my point of view, I think that it should perform just fine, and I have no doubt about the quality of this thing because it was designed in collaboration with Lewitt, which in case you guys are unfamiliar, is a pretty reputable manufacturer for microphones. It has a cardioid polar pattern, which means that it's gonna reject a sound really well from behind the microphone where you don't want it to pick up any weird sounds such as the sounds from your PC and whatnot. In terms of resolution, we have 24-bit, which is pre-standard these days, and a sample rate of up to 96 kHz, again pre-standard. The frequency response is 70 to 20,000 Hz, which is pretty good, a little bit lacking at the lower end, but let's hear how it sounds like later when we do the audio test. I think it should still perform pretty well because it would help cut out some of the rumble at the lower frequency. In terms of sensitivity, we have -25 decibels relative to full scale with the minimum gain and 15 decibels relative to full scale with the maximum gain. The maximum sound pressure level is 120 decibels or 140 decibels with the Clipguard engaged. I'm going to talk about Clipguard later on, so stay tuned. In terms of dynamic range, you get about 95 decibels or 115 decibels with Clipguard engaged once again. In the box, you're going to get a microphone, USB-C cable, the desktop stand, and the boom arm adapter. This shock mount and the pop filter can be purchased separately. In case you guys are audio geeks like me, while Elgato didn't provide us with a frequency response chart, the guys at Sound Guys, pun intended, did one, and this is what it looks like. Based on this chart, it seems that this microphone was tuned specifically for podcasters and streamers, with a de-emphasis of the sub-bass range and a pretty clear mid and treble. But let's see how it sounds like when we test it out in the audio test later. In terms of I/O ports, you have one USB-C port that provides power for the device, as well as enable an easy plug-and-play connection between your mic and your laptop or PC or Mac. Next, you have a 3.5mm headphone jack to help you monitor your mic directly with zero latency, or monitor the mix out of your streaming PC or laptop. Moving on, we have the functionality, and let's take a look at the buttons. Firstly, we have the multifunctional control dial at the bottom of the front, which enables you to control the mic gain, your monitor volume, as well as your mic/PC mix that you can toggle between by clicking on the dial itself. The button feels tactile and gives a satisfying click, and it requires a little bit of force to actuate to avoid any accidental button presses when you're adjusting the dial. The dial also has clicks that will be helpful for you to remember your precise settings, and they even come with LED lights that will light up in accordance with the icons, so you know which setting you're currently adjusting, as well as the levels that you have picked. Up top, we have a capacitive mute button, which means that it's not gonna give you any feedback when you click on it, which will light up your LED ring around the multifunctional control dial red when it is activated. That way, you'll always be aware when you accidentally muted yourself. We also have the Wavelink proprietary software that comes free with any Elgato microphone, and it supports up to 9 channels and 2 separate audio mix outputs, one for monitoring and one for your stream. It's available on both Windows and Mac OS. This is very useful in situations, for instance, when you want to make your background music louder for yourself, so you can groove, but not for your audience. Have a producer-director give you instructions in your own mix, or make the game audio louder for yourself but not for your audience, or even turn up your notifications louder when you have new subs, followers, and of course donations, so you don't be an ungrateful roti canai that doesn't acknowledge his lovely viewers. I'm talking about you. So like I mentioned in the intro as well as the specifications segment, this microphone comes with a very unique feature called Clipguard, which is essentially a hardware limiter. So what happens is when you get too loud, the microphone will switch your audio input to another one that is 20 decibels lower. It's very useful for you streamers who are always triggered, or when you are very excited and happy when you get a huge donation, okay? It will save you a lot of work in post because you don't have to add any compressor or limiter effects in your mix. Now, of course, you can turn on those effects with plugins while you are streaming, but that will compete for computing resources with your game as well as your stream encoding, so that's not recommended. But I do not recommend that you turn on Clipguard when you are doing something like recording vocals for music, because you want to leave all those nuances in your voice unaffected. So you should just control your gain properly. Here's a little test of Clipguard. As you can see, I'm not adjusting the gain. It is still set to the 3rd level right here. Don't forget to subscribe to Mobhouse Productions if you haven't already, because you are definitely missing out on some quality content like this! Now, before we check out the audio test, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about microphone placement, which will affect how your microphone sounds quite drastically. Here are 3 things that you need to pay attention to. Firstly, we have distance. Now you need to get the sweet spot between you, which is the source, and the microphone by moving around and listening to see which position make you sound the most full and natural. Now I found that this microphone has a sweet spot of around 15 to 20 centimeters from you and the front face of the front grille of the microphone. Now, a microphone that is further away from the source, which is you, is going to pick up a more natural representation of your head and chest resonances and give you a more natural sound. Also, extraneous sounds such as your lip and all the other unwanted noises is going to disappear a lot faster when you move away from your microphone than the prominent attributes of your voice. There's also the proximity effect, which is a phenomenon that leads to a boost in the bass frequencies the closer you get to the microphone. And this is how Hollywood and podcasters achieve that godlike voice. My name is Shane, and you should bow down to me and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mobhouse Productions. Secondly, we have the vertical position. Now, high frequencies tend to project downwards from your nose and mouth, which means that if you move your microphone lower from your nose position, you're gonna get a more brighter sound. Now, consonants such as S and P sounds are also a lot more apparent when you're on axis to the microphone, so you might want to shift it a little bit around to avoid that if you're a very sibilant speaker. Now, I said 3 things, but there's 2.5, which is the horizontal position, and that is quite an unknown quality. If you've gone online, you'll see that some singers tend to sing a little bit off axis to the microphone, and audio engineers will use things like pop filters to help guide the singers where to place their mouth when they sing, so that the singer don't undo all that professionally tuned position that the audio engineer has done. For most of you guys who are streamers and podcasters, ignore that, just skip to point number 3, which is the angle of the microphone. Now, if you use a cardioid pattern microphone like this in the off-axis position, you're gonna get an altered frequency response. Now, while there are definitely scenarios where you wanna use microphones in the off-axis, affordable microphones like this tend to have a very uncontrolled off-axis frequency response, which means that you're gonna get very weird peaks and troughs. I recommend that you use this microphone in the on-axis, which means that your mouth is singing or talking straight into the middle of the capsule. And if you want to change the quality of the audio, you can always put on an EQ in post. And you're done. Moving on, we have the much anticipated blind mic test that will show you how this Wave 3 compares with a Blue Ember, which when combined with a decent audio interface and XLR cable should set you back about 30 to 40% more. Also, you have to fork out for that hardware limiter, which would cost as much as the Wave 3 microphone itself. Now, I think that the Clipguard hardware limiter that is implemented in this microphone is one of the best things that I've ever seen in a microphone like this. You would also miss out on all that software integration, which I think is very handy for streaming and podcasting. We're going to show you audio samples from each microphones individually and label them as mic A and B, and we're only going to reveal to you which microphone is which at the end of the test. All the audio tracks are unaltered and unprocessed, so what you hear is what you get. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Sudah lalu waktu dulu, usah tanya lagi. Kasih kita yang terindah kini jadi beku. Tiada lagi yang mampu mencarikan hati aku karena layu jiwa. Cinta yang jauh ditinggal kamu. Sudah lalu waktu dulu, usah tanya lagi. Kasih kita yang terindah kini jadi beku. Tiada lagi yang mampu mencarikan hati aku karena layu jiwa. Cinta yang jauh ditinggal kamu. And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. Guess you didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. Guess you didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past your street. 刻在我心底的名字，忘记了时间这回事，于是谎言说了一次就一辈子。曾顽固跟世界对峙，觉得连呼吸都是奢侈。如果有下次，我会再爱一次。刻在我心底的名字，你藏在尘封的位置。要不是这样，我怎么过一辈子？我住在霓虹的城市，握着飞向天堂的地址。你可以翱翔，可是我只能停止。刻在我心底的名字，忘记了时间这回事，于是谎言说了一次就一辈子。曾顽固跟世界对峙，觉得连呼吸都是奢侈。如果有下次，我会再爱一次。刻在我心底的名字，你藏在尘封的位置。要不是这样，我怎么过一辈子？我住在霓虹的城市，握着飞向天堂的地址。你可以翱翔，可是我只能停止。너의 눈코 입만 만지던 내 손길 작은 손톱까지 다 요즘 널 녹일 수 있지만 거진 불꽃처럼 달아오를 버린 우리 사랑같이 다 너무 아프지만 이제 널 추억이 아부를게 너의 눈코 입만 만지던 내 손길 작은 손톱까지 다 요즘 널 녹일 수 있지만 거진 불꽃처럼 달아오를 버린 우리 사랑같이 다 너무 아프지만 이제 널 추억이 아부를게 So that's all for the test. Please pardon my subpar singing because it's been a hot while since I did anything like that. Leave a comment down below, let us know which microphone sounds better to your ears. I think it's quite subjective, so you guys will have to judge for yourself. Now my verdict will be based on how well I think this microphone performs for the task that it was designed for. So without further ado, let's check out what I like about this microphone. First and foremost, I think the Elgato sounds pretty great for podcasters and streamers, and it is no surprise because it's actually tuned by Lewitt. There's a little tiny de-emphasis in the sub-bass range, which I actually think helps account for the proximity effect, as most of you guys will be using this microphone quite close to the face. Now, it has pretty good ergonomics with the included desktop stand, but because you can't adjust the height, if you just use it like that and you're a little bit further away, you're gonna have to pump up the gain, which is why I actually recommend that you guys get a mic arm to get it to the optimum position to capture your voice so that you can actually turn down the gain and get a little bit less room noise into your recording and your streams. The build quality is also pretty great. While it's not fully metal, I think that this thing is quite solid and should be able to serve you quite well even if you take it out from time to time. Next, the control options are aplenty, and I think that it helps you customize your user experience pretty well. There's also direct monitoring, so you can hear yourself with zero latency, as it doesn't need to go through your PC and then come back out to the output. Now, the Clipguard hardware limiter is such a killer function and helps this microphone punch way above its weight. And yeah, that's great. Once you try it out, you will never go back. It also has pretty good software integration, which is very handy, and the flexible mounting options that is given to you where you can detach this and install a shock mount is also pretty good. Finally, it is plug and play. And while you don't need the Wavelink app to actually use this microphone, I do recommend that you install it because it will help you have a lot more options. Moving on to the and honestly, there's just two things. First and foremost, the shock mount and the pop filter is not included. You have to purchase them separately. And the mute button is actually capacitive and is quite accident prone. So I would like to have something that is clicky. And finally, we have the cons, which honestly, I couldn't find any. I really like this microphone, which brings us to the final verdict. I give this Elgato Wave 3 microphone a 9.5 out of 10. Personally, I think that it is the perfect plug-and-play option for streamers, podcasters, content creators, bedroom musicians, and even freelancers who need a microphone on the go. Why the extra 0.5 points? Well, the Clipguard hardware limiter actually pushes it over the edge for me because it makes it viable for semi-professional work where it will help you prevent your talent's voice from peaking. So that's pretty insane. I only hope that Elgato makes a mic arm for this because the microphone is pretty light and I actually have to add like extra weights to push down this arm and hold it in place for this review. Elgato, take my money and go. That's all, folks. If you thought this video is awesome, you know what to do. And also, don't forget to leave a comment down below to let us know what you think about this microphone or if you have any questions, and I will try to reply to you guys one by one, as well as pick some of your comments and reply it in an actual video in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to see more content like this, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see more of my face. That's all, folks. I will see you in the next one. You are awesome. You're worth it.